I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Size Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Hello and welcome to Class Chat Druid, where we chat about the Druid.
Which is, and this is true,
a class. That's right, everyone. So the Druid class is the next in our alphabetical listing of classes from the core rulebook. We'll move on to the Advanced Player's Guide once we run out of core rulebook classes to do this. Druid is our prepared primal spellcaster. Here is a picture of the Druid, Lini. Along with her, some of the sticks from her stick collection. So, the Druid, the description in the core rulebook says, the power of nature is impossible to resist. It can bring ruin to the stoutest fortress in minutes, reducing even the mightiest works to rubble, burning them to ash, burying them under an avalanche of snow, or drowning them beneath the waves. It can provide endless bounty and breathtaking splendor to those who respect it, and an agonizing death to those who take it too lightly. You are one of those who hear nature's call. You stand in awe of the majesty of its power and give yourself over to its service. According to the core rulebook, if you're playing a druid, you would expect during combat encounters to call upon the forces of nature to defeat your enemies and protect your allies, casting spells to draw upon primal magic, to protect yourself and your friends, heal their wounds, or summon deadly animals to fight at your side. Depending on your bond to nature, you might call upon powerful elemental magic or change shape into a terrifying beast. During social encounters, you represent balance and a reasoned approach to problems, looking for solutions that are not only best for the natural world, also allow the creatures within it to live in harmony and peace. You often propose compromises that allow both sides to gain what they truly need, even if they don't have all that they desire. When exploring, your nature skills are invaluable. You track down enemies, navigate the wilderness, and use spells to detect magical auras around you. You might even ask wild animals to lend their extraordinary senses and scouting abilities to your group. In downtime, you might craft magic items or potions, or your tie to nature might lead you to tend a wilderness area, befriending beasts and healing the wounds caused by civilization. You might even teach sustainable farming and animal husbandry techniques that allow others to subsist off the land without harming the natural balance. Then finally, you might have a deep and meaningful respect for the power of nature, be in constant awe of the natural world, eager to share it with others, but wary of their influence upon it, or treat plants and animals as allies, working with them to reach your goals. Others probably view you as a representative of nature and are sure you can control it.
That's not a dangerous assumption to make.
Oh, yes. Assume you're a recluse who avoids society and cities and prefers to live in the wild. Or consider you a mystic, similar to a priest, but answering only to the forces of nature. So that's sort of what the story is about our druid here. But let's talk a little bit about what you get if you're a druid. So we said primal spellcasting. What is primal spellcasting? If you were only playing Pathfinder 1st Edition, where there's arcane and divine spellcasting, then you knew about the cleric that we did in the last class chat, but primal might be a surprise. So in the way of looking at the four essences of magic, like we did for the bard and the cleric combines life essence, which is the essence of not just being alive, but also instincts and faith, and that part of you that is not your high-minded rational thought, but is just ingrained in you by being a living being. With spiritual essence, the esoteric building block of the outer sphere that is just out there, and that's the cleric, because, well, they have faith in the beyond. But the druid has got that same life essence, same faith, but also has material essence. The last essence we haven't dealt with yet on this series. That's the essence of matter and physical forces. Things like a table or fire, like a combustion reaction.
So you're going to expect with this a lot of magic that has to do with living things, because that's both the life and the physical world.
That's true. But we're not arcane, where you use rational mind to try to characterize the physics and the physical world. But we're primal because we have this instinctual faith in that natural world. And it makes a very interesting difference between how the two types of magic work even though both of them can work their magic on that physical world around them.
So then you'll see, like, for some of the spells that it's a spell that you might say, like, oh yeah, no, this is a spell that's more associated with life or vital essence, and so it's going to be on the list that pull from that. It's going to be on
like heal.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be on the primal list as well as the divine list.
That's right. So other than that, you're trained in perception, fortitude, and reflex while being an expert in will. But don't worry, because you're going to pick up expert in fortitude at level 3, which is pretty quick. You're trained in nature and a special skill depending on your druidic order. So if you're not familiar with druidic orders, they come somewhat from the lore of the world of, like, the Green Faith, which is this big, broad druidic faith in Golarion that also has multiple different orders that specialize in different parts of what it means to be a druid. Anyway, you get nature, the one from your order, and 2 extra plus your intelligence modifier. You're trained in simple weapons and unarmed attacks, like most of these spellcasters, but your defenses, you got light armor and medium armor, plus unarmored defense. And you've got primal spell attacks, primal spell DCs, and shield block. However, you're going to run into a little bit of an issue that sort of kind of counterbalances, I guess, the fact that you've got the light and medium armor and the shield block, which is that you cannot use metal armor or shields. Your anathema, as stewards of the natural order, you find affronts to nature anathema. That makes sense. If you perform enough acts that are anathema to nature, you can lose your magical abilities, and you can get anathema from your order in specific. So, like, if you were the Order of Clean Skies and you're polluting the skies, you don't do that. You don't teach the secret druidic language to non-druids. That's going to mess you up. You don't despoil natural places. And then you can't use metal armor or shields, which, to be honest, I've never been entirely certain why that's in the anathema, but it is. And you cannot use them. You also have your druidic order, like we were talking about before, and your primal spellcasting. It's prepared like the cleric, not spontaneous like the bard. That means each day you kind of attune with nature and the land around you and pick out which spells you're going to be using for that day. You also actually start with an ability that some other classes can get optionally, but you just always have, Wild Empathy, where you can kind of rudimentarily make your case to wild animals, and they generally will hold on for a minute to listen to what you're doing with them, where we use diplomacy on them, rather than just, like, attack you right away.
Yeah. So that way that you don't run into a situation where it's like you come across the animal and you need to try to defend yourself for the entire minute while you're talking.
The fact that the line in most cases, wild animals, will give you time to make your case is a line that I added to the ability due to experience from Pathfinder First Edition, where you had the ability, but, like, a lot of the time the GM will be like, well, okay, that's nice, but this bear is attacking you.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly exceptions to that, right? If the story calls for it.
Yeah, like, it says in most cases.
Like in an adventure that I was just working on, it's like there is a specific reason why these animals are particularly aggressive, because they've been incited to be extremely aggressive.
Yeah, if someone else is sending them at you, that's what the reason it says most cases, because there's going to be cases where you can't do.
Hey, somebody else's animal companion, why don't you not attack me?
Yep. So we talked about before sometimes that, like, the core 4 classes, cleric, wizard, fighter, and rogue, were just sort of passed around, and everybody on the design team worked on them, and there's a lead on the other classes. So, for the most part, Jason was the lead on the druid. However, as the lead designer of everything, he was pulled off on a lot of other things, so I filled in for some of the primary design of the druid, but only a small amount. And then, of course, we passed every class around and everybody worked on it. So, yeah, you've got Wild Empathy. And let's talk about the orders that you have. So, upon becoming a druid, you align yourself with the druidic order. It's going to give you a special feat, which other people can take later on. A special spell that's a focus spell called an order spell. And the skill that we mentioned earlier that you're going to be trained in. And you might be able to study with other orders to be able to learn more, and there's feats for that. So that's basically how the orders work.
So there's certainly ability to learn things that are not specifically tied to your order.
That's right.
Unlike in some other classes are more like, this is definitely your thing.
Yep. And
you're not going to be a paladin and a liberator simultaneously.
The orders that appear in the core rulebook are the animal order, where you're really connected to animals and they're your friends, and you've got an animal companion, and you're good at athletics, and you can heal your animal companion with your focus points. And your extra anathema is wanton cruelty to animals or killing them unnecessarily. You still can kill them for all sorts of reasons, as long as it was necessary, like for food if you need it to survive or defending yourself. The leaf order reveres plants. It's Linda's favorite order because you got a leshy friend instead of an animal companion. And you got Goodberry focus spell, which gives you just a whole bunch of healing. You're trained in diplomacy because the leaf order tries to like work things out and help teach people more about how to harvest things well. And your anathema will be committing wanton cruelty to plants or killing plants unnecessarily in order to... So it's like with the animals, but with plants. The Storm Order carries the power of Storm. They have a very powerful focus spell called Tempest Surge and a Stormborn feat that really lets you see through weather conditions. And when it comes to your Druid spells, you're not going to miss because of something that's happening from the rain, because you're Stormborn. So for you, the anathema would be polluting the air or allowing those who cause major air pollution or climate shifts to go unpunished. It doesn't make you go against like potential harm to the environment or sacrifice yourself, just like the champions don't have to sacrifice themselves against evil. And then the Wild Order is sort of the savage, uncontrollable call of the natural world infuses you, and you gain the ability to change shape into a different kind of thing. Using the Wild Morph order spell, it allows you gain the wild shape druid feat as well. Wild morph turns like part of you into an animal. Wild shape turns all of you into something else, and you gain intimidation because that sounds pretty intimidating. Oh, Storm got acrobatics, which is used for flying around, so that's pretty natural. When you're wild, and that means that you can't become fully domesticated by the temptations of civilization. So you can still buy and use processed goods or stay in a city for an adventure, but you're not gonna rely on those kind of conveniences. Those are the druid orders we got here. So that is the orders for the druid.
When I think of this in comparison to Pathfinder First Edition, I think about how there was sort of the sense of like, I'm either going to be the strong druid that's focused on the wild shape and things like that, or I'm gonna be the casty druid. This really takes it more and is about what is the aspect of nature that the druid is focused more on, and then they can choose to take feats if they want to.
There's mechanical heft, but it's tied to the story rather than just like which ability score am I gonna use. So as you level up as a druid, you'll gain a bunch of other abilities. It's pretty similar in advancement to the cleric in a lot of ways. You're going to see that you get alertness. You get that really quickly too. You get great fortitude and alertness right away at level 3. That's a pretty good advancement. And lightning reflexes by level 5. So for a spellcaster, having all of those by level 5 is actually pretty fast. You get expert spellcasting at level 7. Druid weapon expertise at level 11, all very standard. You also pick up Resolve at level 11, getting a Master at will saves. Medium armor expertise at level 13. Weapon specialization there too, also very standard for a spellcaster. Master spellcasting 15, legendary spellcasting 19, and then Primal Hierophant, which gives you the incredible power of nature and gives you a 10th level slot, which is our parallel to the one that the cleric got, which was called whatever it was called.
The one that includes miracle and
miraculous spell. You were right. It had miracle in its name. This is a complete parallel, but with druids.
Your 10th level spell option here.
That's right. So that is what you've got in terms of your advancement. Now there's also feats, but the feats are actually very easy to understand because in a way that actually seems like a lot of people find very appealing, but it is a little bit constricting in your choices. A lot of these require a certain order. On the other hand, you can absolutely take the second level feat Order Explorer and grab another order. So you
Dora
really,
the Order Explorer?
yes, and you can take it multiple times too. And when you do, you gain the first level feat from the order, as well as counting from being from that order. You're now in that order, so you can take other things that require that order. So you could definitely get all of them by like at second, fourth, and sixth level. You just take all of them.
Thanks for gifting a sub, Rico.
Yeah, thank you. But it definitely does slow you down if you wanted to take ones from across many different orders. So if you look at first level, there's all the order feats are in there, plus some pretty standard meta magic of reach spell and widen. Yeah. Then at second level, you can get some additional fun stuff like Call of the Wild to like change your spells into summoning, or
you can enhance your familiars,
for
such
your
as
Leshy.
if you have a Leshy.
Yep. Or you can grab a little bit of poison resistance. But you also might take Order Explorer, so you can sort of have a double Order Druid. Then you move into so there aren't really other feats other than the Leshy and Pence Familiar at level 2 that require an order per se. But at fourth level and beyond, you start getting all sorts of fun enhancements for your orders. So you've got like form control for the Wild Druid, where you can stay as a weaker version of your wild shape for a longer period of time, or a stronger animal companion for if you've got the animal companion. Order magic lets you pick up the spell from the other order that you joined, Thousand Faces, so that you can turn yourself into another person with wild shape, and so on and so forth. And it just keeps getting better and better from that. Additional forms. Storm Retribution is a fun one where when you get critted, you zap immediately with Tempest Surge against your enemy.
You can get some Fey magic with Fey Collar.
That's right. It's a callback to like the Fey Collars, like one of the archetypes from Pathfinder First Edition that was pretty popular. And you get stronger and stronger companions. You can just turn into a plant and heal from photosynthesis. You can gain some pretty neat focus spells like Impaling Briars to make a whole Sleeping Beauty style like field of ridiculous thorns. Invoke Disaster, making it this giant Stormlord ability if you are from the Order of the Storm. Perfect Form Control, where you can just permanently stay as the type of creature that you turn into with Form Control instead of for an hour.
And there's all sorts of things that continue to bolster your animal companion as well, and the ways that you can fight with them.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Let me see about Form Control. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you can grab more focus, you can get better animal companions, and eventually you can get true shapeshifter, where you can just keep shifting back into all sorts of different forms all the time in the middle of your spells. Leyline Conduit, where you keep calling into ley lines to just infinitely cast 5th level or lower spells that don't have durations every minute. That's handy. Or Hierophant's Power for another 10th level spell. So all of them are very, very useful. And that's from the core rulebook, but the Advanced Player's Guide had some pretty neat spells that were, feats.
Feats, yeah.
Not spells.
Well,
feats.
Yeah.
Feats that were added in there, written by James Case. And some of them allow you to do things like sowing a spell into the ground like a seed so that it can eventually like go off on your enemies. Or you can also do something similar where you sow like a seed into like changing into an awesome weapon, which is just a really great visual.
Or Leshy Familiar Secrets.
Yes. That's Linda's favorite one that James wrote, where you can get a special ability for your Leshy Familiar that others can't have, like the Verdant Burst or Purifying Air or very long tendrils. Absolutely. And also just other fun ones like the Diamatic Display, where you have your animal companion do a threat display on a bunch of things. So there's definitely a lot of focus on the connection between the Druid and the land, and that includes with the additional feats that come in. There's even primal ages. Advanced players got 18th level feat where you're just surrounded by primal energy and everybody, your allies just get a bunch of resistance to a whole bunch of types of things based on your wisdom modifier. Because it's like, yeah, you know how to protect against all of these things. I think there might be another one in there that's similar to Wandering Oasis. Yeah, where you're surrounded by an area where severe environmental heat and cold are just not an issue. And if you're legendary in survival, extreme are just not an issue. Whatever, you're an oasis of soothing energy from the problems that are being caused by the natural world. So there's really a lot that you can do with the Druid to sort of tell the story about being connected to the environment. Plus, also just this Leaf Druid sample build. I love how, like, the Druid is holding up the shield and the Leshy is like, I can hold my hand like that. I bet I'm going to block it. And it's not going to block
it. Well, you added the Leaf Order because there was extra space.
There was. But, I mean, that mushroom fungus Leshy is not going to block it.
It's not.
But it thinks it's going to block it.
It's going to block it. It's so cute.
So, we also like to talk a little bit about multi-class druids and also druids that multi-class into other things. So let's move to the multi-class archetypes section of the core rulebook. Oh, I suppose, actually, before we do, druids have a secret compartment in the core rulebook that is all mostly about them and also rangers as well, but is just not in their class. The animal companions for animal order druids. So there's a bunch of cool animal companions you can pick, such as the badger, the bear, the bird, the cat, the dromaeosaur, the horse, the snake, or the wolf. And the dromaeosaur is like a velociraptor or raptor style or Deinonychus, because that way you're just playing whichever one of those you want, of whichever size you want, and you don't have to say like the wrong size for a velociraptor or whatever.
Yeah, and each of them has their own special advanced maneuver that they can get.
Yeah, they start out with the ability to offer you a special support benefit. If you want, instead of attacking, they can do something like the bear adds more to your damage. They can then learn a special advanced maneuver like Badger's Rage or Bear Hug or Flyby Attack for the bird. And then they can gain a specialization such as Ambusher, Bully, or Daredevil. And those give them yet another additional customization and ability. So you really can make some interesting combinations for your animal companions.
Now, there's a question: what is the fluffiest animal companion?
What is the fluffiest animal companion?
And Linda? Here, probably the cat. But I think you could be a lot fluffier with familiar, since it lets you choose whatever you want. So you could be like, I have a chinchilla familiar.
You could have a chinchilla. Also, there are more companions in the Advanced Player's Guide, including like a tree that is not technically an animal and a dragon that is not technically an animal. Mm-hmm.
Neither of those is particularly fluffy, though.
They are not. They're not really, and you know, like. A boar is not that fluffy either. Sorry. I guess that we didn't have that many fluffy ones.
Cats can be fluffy.
The cat could be fluffy, right?
Yeah.
And it says for the wolf that it could be a canine creature such as a dog. And so you could have like a poodle that is totally a wolf. I mean, I've seen that before in...
speaking of familiars, Dwemer Cat.
Dwemer Cat, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I wrote that one for Lost Omens Pathfinder Society Guide for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Because of Fluffy?
It might be because of Fluffy. All right. So, we've got the Druid. So, this is a first printing, so it's got a little bit of a artistic snafu here where the armor is kind of metally looking, and that's been fixed later on, but it's a multi-class Druid. So, you can pick up Druid Dedication, just like the Cleric. It's going to start you off with a cantrip. It'll teach you all sorts of magic, eventually up to level 8. You can get basic Walding and advanced Walding for Druid feats. And you can pick up your Order spell as a 4th level feat, which is relevant because otherwise there's no way to get a spell from your initial Order. There was only the way to get the one from Order Explorer from a different Order. So, that's basically the main difference between Cleric and Druid, is that Druid has the Order spell feat, and Cleric does not have the Order spell feat. And Druid also talks about the fact that you're actually in the Order. You don't gain any of like the feats and skills Actually, you do gain the Order's associated skill.
you do.
You don't gain any of the feats from that or other benefits, but you do get the Anathema from the Order. And that makes it a little longer than the Cleric. Combined with the Order spell, it doesn't have suggestions for multi-class Druid characters, and that's how it all fits in. But there are almost all the same combinations that are good combinations for multi-classing to Cleric are also good for multi-classing into Druid. Plus, even if you're not any of the things we said in the Cleric episode, who wants to pick up a little bit of healing, you could consider multi-classing into Druid for a particular build where you go Wild Order, you quickly grab Wild Shape, and use the Animal Shape for a while, because you can get it pretty fast. And you're not going to be able to keep up with the higher level Wild Shape feats, but Animal Shape, like, from Wild Shape, heightens, like, pretty far on its own, I think. I need to check, but I think, like, up to 5th spell level, or at least 4th.
It goes for, I don't remember exactly how far it goes.
It goes at least 4th. I can check it here. Yeah, it's 5th. That's what I thought. So, I mean, that can, because of the fact that even though you get feats at half speed, that, like, focus spells heighten to full, you actually wind up, like, randomly on your fighter getting kind of the benefits of a 5th level spell at, like, a very, very competitive level. Then you can't go past that very much, but for the first 10 levels, you're in very good shape if you're like a martial character with your attack of opportunity and all your other stuff, or a monk who has flurry of blows or all your other actions, and then you go into getting the Wild Shape. Silver Knight points out that the Primal list is a great pickup because it has blast and healing. That is absolutely true.
So we said things that we said in the Cleric episode,
Yes.
but people may not necessarily have seen
That's
the
true,
Cleric
that's
episode
true.
here. So Cleric itself is...
Cleric and Druid both are great to pick up. Just if you have the Wisdom and you're any class, we said before then, like, pretty much anything can match with it, because there's nothing that you're not going to go wrong by picking up a little bit of additional healing. And Cleric and Druid both offer a lot more than that, but at the baseline level, that's something they can offer you for a few feats. It's especially good if you're a class that can give up on having those feats without an issue. Also, if you've got primal spellcasting for some other reason, such as being a primal sorcerer or a primal witch, chances are you've got a little bit of wisdom to put your nature skill up, maybe, and that might be enough to grab Druid and use your faster primal advancement from your other class on your primal spells from Druid multiclass to keep up your DC at the maximum amount. But honestly, there's a lot of good things you can do either way. Rico points out Wild Shape can give you utility, climbing and swimming turn into a shark. Absolutely.
I think it would be cool to play like an investigator druid who has like pretty good, or investigator / druid has pretty good wisdom and then has the ability to be like, I'm going to investigate by turning into a tiny animal, sneaking around and not leaving any trace of where I go.
Ha ha ha. No one expects that. Now, if you are a druid and you're going to multi-class into something else, then that one's a little bit interesting because of the fact that druids already have some really good feats, and there's the enticement of, like, it's not multi-classing, right? But it's similar where you're like, I'll multi-order and then I'll get all these things. But then you wind up having feats that, like, draw you in at almost every level if you multi-order too much. But if you are going to pull out of that and say, wait, no, I'm serious, I'm going to multi-class there's some good things you can do, right? You can pick up Cleric, which shares your ability score, and just get even more spells and some of the ones that Cleric have that Druid don't. Plus, since your primary is primal, your blasts and other things from the primal list are gonna still be able to go up to your max level, and you can pick up the utilities into the Cleric casting. So that can definitely help. If you're a Druid, you might, for the same reason we talked about going into Wild Druid, if you're a Wild Druid, you might consider multi-classing into a martial character to pick up things like Attack of Opportunity or Flurry of Blows that can help you out when you're in your other form and you're doing your own thing. If you obviously Ranger is a very thematic fit, and it's likely you'll have the 14 Dexterity for it anyway, and it helps you well. Druid Rogue for an investigator for the other direction of what Linda was saying of like sneaking around as an animal or with using animals to sneak around, flank with your animal companion, get some sneak attack, pick up your skills so that you're kind of a skillsy person because both Rogue and Investigator Dedication give tons of skills. Also, you could multiclass into Sorcerer, either a different, if you've got the Charisma for like the Wild Empathy, either a different kind of spell casting to add that to yourself, or Primal so that you get to use your better proficiency and you've got some tricks that you always know are up your sleeve so that because you can like spontaneously cast them from the Sorcerer.
Herbalist is a cool one to pick up too because you're already trained in nature and then you can get some alchemical.
That's true.
Herbally themed.
Or even the Alchemist multi-class if you actually have 14 intelligence is a nice fit. But yeah, the Herbalist is good. There's a lot in. Once you open up to the Advanced Player's Guide, there's a lot of really good archetypes for Druid, but it's always hard because
there's a mention here, Druid is a fun choice
feats.
for Eldritch Trickster. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Eldritch Trickster, Rogue Bracket, absolutely. There's always so many feats in Druid that you also want. So it can be like a little bit of feat hungry with some of those powerful Animal Companion and Wild-shaped feats and so on. But there's a way to make it work, and especially if you go like Leaf or Storm and just don't take Order Explorer, you can fit it into an archetype without too much trouble. All right, so yeah, that's what we've got about Druid. Let's see if there are any. Were there any other questions that you noticed in the chat about Druid, like the philosophy and the story of Druid and things like that? I'm not seeing any right now. Looks like there is not. All right. So, shall we say farewell to YouTube?
Yes, let's.
Bye, YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.